Carl Jung once said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, love is lacking." This powerful statement invites us to reflect on the roots of psychopathy, especially regarding the desire for control and manipulation. According to Jung, the pursuit of power can become so overwhelming that it crushes any trace of genuine empathy or affection. This concept is essential in understanding the psychology of psychopaths, who often represent this power versus love dynamic in an extreme and frequently dangerous way. What truly drives a psychopath? How do they manage to manipulate and control those around them without anyone noticing? And what would Carl Jung say about the presence of a dark archetype in the psychopathic personality? Jung believed that we all carry a shadow, repressed and unrecognized aspects of our psyche. However, in the case of the psychopath, the shadow seems to reach a level where there is no sense of right or wrong, only an unrelenting pursuit of domination and self-centered desires. Understanding this dark psychology is challenging, as it forces us to confront deep and unsettling aspects of human nature. The lack of empathy and remorse in psychopaths makes them dangerous and mysterious figures who operate in society's shadows, manipulating those around them to get what they want. Jung offered us valuable insights into what happens in a mind disconnected from the collective, losing any sense of humanity. In his view, the psychopath is someone who refuses to look inward or acknowledge any weakness or vulnerability. This denial fuels an illusion of superiority, feeding a monstrous ego. This discussion focuses on the invisible manipulation and control exercised by psychopaths. Using Jung's concepts, we'll explore what drives this behavior, how it develops, and the lessons we can take when confronting this dark side of the human psyche. Understanding what Jung might describe as the dehumanized shadow can help us protect ourselves from its influence and develop sharper awareness of the dangers of manipulation and control. For Carl Jung, the shadow represents repressed and denied aspects of the psyche. In the case of psychopaths, the shadow reaches an almost unfathomable depth, marked by antisocial traits like a lack of empathy, manipulation, and an impulse for total control. Psychopaths often come across as highly charismatic and manipulative, using sharp emotional skills to achieve their goals. You might argue that rather than engaging in an honest confrontation with their shadow, which leads to self-understanding and integration, the psychopath projects it onto the world, seeing people merely as tools for satisfying their desires. In Jungian theory, the journey of individuation is the process through which a person becomes aware of and integrates all aspects of the psyche, including the dark parts. However, the psychopath avoids this process. Instead of acknowledging and integrating the shadow, the psychopath weaponizes it for control and manipulation. Their emotional detachment makes them immune to others' suffering, allowing them to shape others' perceptions, creating an illusion of trustworthiness or charm. It's a distortion of the self. Rather than integrating the shadow, the psychopath externalizes it, using it to manipulate and subjugate. An important concept in Jung, the power complex. For Jung, the power complex is key to understanding the psychopathic mind. He describes it as a part of the personality dominated by a craving for control and authority, where the individual operates from a profound need for power over others. In the psychopath, this power complex is expressed in an extreme, almost visceral form. Driven by an unconscious attempt to fill an internal void caused by emotional disconnection, the psychopath seeks fulfillment through a relentless sense of control and superiority. This insatiable thirst for power defines the invisible manipulation we often see in psychopaths. This power complex causes the psychopath to view others as objects rather than autonomous beings. Lacking both the capacity and desire for genuine emotional bonds, the psychopath's emotional disconnection, Jung would argue, is not merely a choice but a psychic defense. This defense shields the psychopath from confronting their own emptiness and fear. In this sense, the quest for control becomes an escape from facing themselves, a means to avoid the void within. To understand how psychopathic manipulation might appear in real-life scenarios, let's look at some common examples of the tactics psychopaths use to exert control. Imagine someone in the workplace who seems charming and highly skilled at communication. Yet, this person constantly manipulates information to ensure that their work is viewed as the most important, subtly sabotaging colleagues who might outshine them. This behavior, often referred to as gaslighting, leaves others questioning their own perceptions, competence, and even their sense of reality. In this case, a psychopath uses their ability to read the vulnerabilities and weaknesses of others to maintain absolute control over the environment. They not only manipulate those around them, but create a web of false impressions and distorted interpretations that serve their own interest. Another common example occurs in personal relationships, where the psychopath employs what Jung would call a social mask or persona to win the trust and affection of their partner. At first, they may come across as charming and attentive, but gradually, they exploit the insecurities and fears of their partner. In extreme cases, they impose psychological and emotional isolation, controlling the victim to the point where they can no longer distinguish between what is real and what is manipulation. This dynamic fosters a psychological dependency, making the victim feel emotionally trapped with no way out. These behaviors reveal what Jung described as a dissociation between the persona and the true self. In other words, the psychopath creates a completely false persona with no connection to any authentic inner self, essentially becoming a full-time actor. Their persona is always geared toward attracting, deceiving, and controlling, and they play different roles depending on the situation, never exposing a vulnerable or genuine side. These examples show how psychopaths use not only visible behaviors, but also invisible manipulation. Their tactics are carefully crafted, as they exploit the unconscious mind of their victims, manipulating not only actions but also perceptions. Through this, they achieve a form of psychological power over others, turning people into pieces of a game where only they know the rules. For Carl Jung, the root of psychopathy lies in a profound psychic split. In the psychopath, this division is so severe that the ego isolates itself and overpowers the unconscious, ignoring the call for integration and balance entirely. The manipulation they exert is a way of reinforcing this separation, as if they live in a parallel world where others are always objects rather than subjects with their own will. According to Jung, this disconnection is what enables the psychopath to commit acts of cruelty with indifference, as they do not recognize humanity in others. Moreover, Jung argued that within the collective unconscious lie universal archetypes that we all share. These archetypes can become distorted, especially when there is no conscious integration of the shadow. In the psychopath, the power archetype takes precedence, creating an identity centered on domination, devoid of morality, and incapable of forming genuine bonds. The hero archetype, for example, which seeks to protect and serve others, is either suppressed or non-existent. Instead, the psychopath embodies a sort of anti-hero, a character who uses emotional insight to manipulate and destroy rather than unite and build. However, Jung warns us that in studying the psychopath, we are also looking into a dark mirror of our own psyche. We all have a shadow, and if it is not recognized and worked on, it risks manifesting in our own behaviors. Psychopathy provides an extreme example of how the power of the shadow can overwhelm the ego when self-knowledge and conscious integration are absent. Jung saw this as a risk that we all face, the potential to disconnect from our humanity and from others. This awareness is essential because, by understanding the dark motivations of the psychopath, we can become aware of the risks of dissociation and denial of essential parts of our own psyche. The danger of succumbing to the power complex and becoming insensitive to the needs of others is present in all of us, to varying degrees. Shadow integration, in this context, becomes not only a practice of personal growth, but also one of maintaining empathy and a sense of community. Carl Jung offers a unique perspective on what psychopathy represents for the human psyche and how it serves as an extreme example of the consequences of disintegration between ego and shadow. Ultimately, Jung challenges us to look within ourselves and recognize our own inclinations toward control, power, and manipulation, reminding us that true strength lies in integration, not domination. The most profound lesson we can draw from this study is that, to avoid the path of dissociation, each individual must seek understanding and acceptance of their own shadow. Jung believed that the pursuit of self-knowledge and individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, is the key to a balanced and authentic life. To avoid falling into a blind quest for control, we must learn to embrace our own fears, repressed desires, and tendencies that, while dark, are part of our humanity. By doing so, we weaken the shadow's power, reducing the likelihood of it manifesting in destructive ways. The psychology of psychopaths shows us what happens when the shadow is not embraced but projected outward instead. Although the psychopath embodies an extreme form of emotional disconnection, the lesson we can take from this is that true power comes from understanding and compassion. By cultivating an honest relationship with our own feelings and limitations, we prevent our ego from becoming domineering and manipulative. Moreover, the study of psychopathy teaches us that empathy and love are powerful antidotes to alienation. Jung believed that where love reigns, the desire for control weakens. To love means to accept and embrace the other, recognizing that everyone has a shadow, but, rather than controlling it, must integrate it. Thus, the true challenge of life, according to Jung, is not to eliminate our shadow, but to find a balance where we can live authentically without resorting to manipulation or control over others. Therefore, as we reflect on psychopathy and invisible manipulation, we are reminded of the importance of nurturing our own psychological development. Only by being honest with our own desires and limitations can we live genuinely and establish healthy relationships. In the end, the pursuit of self-knowledge and the acceptance of the shadow is not just an act of personal growth, but a path to strengthen love and compassion, values that are the true foundation of humanity. By following the path of individuation proposed by Jung, we not only prevent the development of destructive traits, but also build a life where love, not power, truly defines our actions and purpose.